Welcome to the April 27th edition of the PFF Forecast, where we are going to talk about the NFL Draft and NFL Draft props. Because if you are like any other American or anyone in the world, you're probably getting ready to bet some draft props. And we're here to lead the Quay. Let's rock. How many people do you think got that joke? Was it just me and you?
God, I hope so. I hope not.
By the way, I'm George. This is Eric.
Yes, thank you.
And we are your hosts of the PFF Forecast. We generally talk about sports betting, in particular NFL and college betting. And today marks the eve of a really great but probably underrated betting event, which is the NFL Draft. So we're going to go over draft props. We're going to talk through them. But here's the thing. I want to start with the prop that no one should bet anymore, but that was probably, what did you call it? Like is this similar to like the Patriots Bills game where it happened to be, 40 mile per hour winds and you're never going to see this kind of event again? Tell people about the Quay Walker event.
The Quay Walker event. I mean,
Georgia linebacker.
So a couple of interesting things. So and you could probably find out who these people are as far as the people at PFF, but we are privy to a lot of information, not necessarily, just information that comes up. And I know on the PFF betting pod, I said, look, I just got back from Indiana. I can't tell anybody who it is, what this is yet, but I just, I made a sizable bet. We'll throw some hints out there as this sort of goes. And, so this was last week. There wasn't a ton of liquidity in the market. So Quay Walker was plus 225 to be taken in the top 32. There are people that we know who know people who know where he's going in the draft. And ultimately, we got a tip that he was going to be a first round pick and it still hasn't happened, right? So this could also just blow up in our face. And I was like, oh, interesting. The number hasn't moved for days. I'm like, this is, is this even real? Is this whatever? So I wake up Friday and Anthony Tresh, who was in the office at the time when I heard about this, sends me a text message. He goes, hey, it's 175 on DraftKings. I'm like, okay. Wow. And I'm like, honey, I'm going to. So I drive to Lawrenceburg, which is probably 45 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
I stop and I take out, and they wouldn't let me take out more than five. Honest to goodness, this place, wouldn't let me take out a certain amount so I went to 5 kiosks, bet $100 in each kiosk on plus 200 that he would go in the first round. It was what I got at 200, which is a better number. I went to DraftKings. Now I went to DraftKings, popped it a few times. By the way, my DraftKings account's restricted now.
Oh, really?
And then we got him at 15-1 to be first linebacker taken. And numbers don't really move, right? And I'm kind of like, huh. And, there's a couple people in the industry, Sam Panianovich, who hosts the Chicken Dinner podcast, a few other people that Tim Murray, who hosts the VSiN podcast and used to host the NBC one that you used to go to on set. A few people, we share this information with. And everybody's kind of like, okay. His draft prop was 40.5. His over-under prop was 40.5, pick 40.5. That moved slightly to 38.5 over the weekend. So there was a little bit of thought oh, okay, Then Monday, and I think this is because all of the Vegas books, Circa, Win, open their props. Quay Walker goes all the way down to even money to be first round.
Wow.
And his draft prop goes in 36. I literally posted a TikTok with get under 36.5 before it goes away. And half hour later, it's 32.5 minus even money, basically both sides. So that happens. Okay. Feeling okay. Then Tom Pelissero tweets out today that Quay Walker's a top 20 pick.
Wow.
So we're all like, okay. And I'm back in Indiana because there's a coffee shop, by the way, if you want to sponsor the podcast. It's called Funny Farm Coffee Shop.
Great. We've got a lot of ad space for Funny Farm.
And so I'm there. I'm taking
They
some
put shrooms in their coffee.
Well, I'm taking some of these meetings at Funny Farm Coffee because and of course I'm obnoxious, right? I'm talking about data science and football in the middle of a coffee shop.
No one in the the coffee shop's weirdly empty, but Eric's just there ruling the roost.
Yeah.
The whole Funny Farm is pissed
great
at
chicken
you.
noodle soup at Funny Farm Coffee Company. By the way.
My god.
And so I'm sitting here like I'm taking meetings. I'm like interviewing candidates for jobs. I'm a absolute privilege right now, and I get the last at Caesars. I get Trey Walker under 26.5 at like -1. I get the last Trey Walker bet. So now we sit here. He's -600 to go first round. His over under, I think he's plus 175 to be first linebacker taken. So you go from 15 to 1, 10 to 1.
And that's been Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd.
No, it was Nakobe Dean, then it moved to Devin Lloyd, and now Devin Lloyd's -175. Devin Lloyd, as of yesterday, was -700 to be the first linebacker taken. Now it's -175. And that's been like and then we've been like dropping hints on Twitter, like, hey, the Quay, the truth and the light. Show me the Quay. Thoughts and Quayers.
That one's not my favorite one. That one's a little bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Yeah. But it's been an interesting ride, and again,
I like Quayanon, by the way.
Another Quayanon drop in his draft position is what I liked.
I also this morning, or actually this wasn't this morning. This was yesterday, middle of the day. I get a text, Slack from Eric that just says, "God will make a Quay."
Well, there seems to be no Quay because the numbers weren't moving, and I was a little nervous. Luckily, again, we ended up again.
Where does your investment in the Quay, the truth and the light, compare to our Justin Fields, Trey Lance, not Mac Jones syndicate position?
If you took Fields and Lance combined, it's about the same.
Okay. So it's a sizable
amount.
Sizable investment here. Yeah. Okay, so if
that one is dead. Like, don't bet Quay Walker.
Syndicate. Syndicate isn't that. We have smart listeners.
Don't lay 6 to 1 to don't lay 6 to 1 to for him to go in the round one, because it might not win. Like and again, like I said, like betting, it's about picking winners for the most part. But it's also about picking your spots where to really press. And like last year, we talked about Buffalo versus New England. Mm-hmm. I remember distinctly when Damian Harris ran that 80-yard touchdown, you and Austin in our chat were like, well, that under's dead, right? Because it was like 34.5 or something, and it was already 10-0 in the first quarter. And, that Army-Navy under, that was another one. So there's a number of plays where you just like you hit big when you think you have an edge. And that edge, and in the draft prop market, like it's just so much less sharp than sides and totals in the NFL, right? So like this is the time where you can really get something down and win more so than you try to do at a 52.4 or better clip in the NFL game by game by game when everybody's watching the same games as you.
Now it's a super good point. And by the way, the number of markets now in the NFL draft,
it's huge.
It's awesome. I mean, I'm looking at FanDuel right now. I mean, you can pick exact orders, and it's not like 3 options. Like they got like 25 options for the exact order of the first 2 picks, the exact order of the first 3 picks, which has some really interesting options there. There's like 50 different combinations. Exact order of the top 2 quarterbacks taken, which is also interesting.
Crazy. You also second player taken at a position market. So you had second linebacker for a while was Quay Walker at plus 150. That's been taken down. But you have, for example,
second quarterback,
third cornerback taken. You have Trent McDuffie favored at -250. But Kahir Elam has come up and made it 4-1. Kahir Elam.
Is there an H in his name?
I don't know. I'm imbuing. But you also have like Derek Stingley now. I mean, Ahmad Gardner was -450 to be the first corner just like a couple days ago. Yeah. It's -175. And the interesting thing, I was on Wart Moneyball yesterday, and I was like,
is there value, by the way, on like Kahir Elam at 10 to 1?
First corner taken or second corner taken? Or
first corner taken.
So Elam,
are we sure?
That's 100 to 1.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
I don't think so, but I think right now, and this is what is interesting.
Where are you seeing the second cornerback taken, by the way?
Right beneath.
I don't have that on.
Oh, so you don't? Okay. DraftKings, by the way,
what is he for second cornerback taken?
Elam is 40-1 to be first cornerback, second cornerback taken. You have,
because it's such a styles makes fights things, with corner.
Yeah.
Right. Well, remember AJ Terrell, for example, right?
Was second. What was third corner taken in 20? Right.
Yeah, and
it was C.J. Henderson after the Lions guy Okuda, and then it was him.
That worked out for them.
So far, it's been bad. So I think what the tenor of this podcast really needs to be, for the most part, a lot of the draft props are at any given instance in time, the draft props are going to be tough to navigate because a lot of the value has been sucked out of the market with information. Mm-hmm. And you have to have that information. You have to be able to move on that information and move quickly on that information. But I remember last year when we all discovered Trey Lance was the pick, right? I remember, this is so much fun. We prepped for the draft show in this room. I drive home. We only had one car at the time. I dropped the car off in my wife's, the school where she's teaching. I walk the mile back to my house. I call you and I'm like, what are you hearing about Lance? And we're both hearing the same thing about Lance.
And it was the Rodgers conversation too.
It was a Rodgers conversation that we all thought was bullshit, right?
Yes.
And then I get to my house. I load up one of my offshores that still has, because a lot of times you can only pop a certain amount of these. And I full popped Lance. And a lot of these offshores, and here's where you can probably make some money. If you have some offshore accounts that usually they give out bad vig, they're, DraftKings will be minus 115 on both sides. A bad offshore account will have so much more hold, right? On an over-under, it'll be minus 120 to both sides. However, it'll be slow to move. So in some sense, for example, this offshore I had Travon Walker minus 250 to be the first player taken, which yesterday was a shitty number because he was minus 190. Right. And so, but now where you look at the market's painted Walker minus 300, minus 250 is a good price if you want to do it. That's kind of, I think, where you can sort of manipulate this thing because these books are going to be slow. And so as long as you're not going to do some behavior that'll limit you, right? Full popping, literally every off-market number on your offshore book, which will get you will get you kicked out. That's kind of maybe where to make plays tomorrow. Because for me, the Lance number I got on draft day on offshore was plus 110. And this was after every swinging dick had him at minus 200, minus 250. And it was just because that book was slow to go. And, you take advantage of those.
And you caught him. By the way, the one that you might want to keep an eye on is the total number of running backs taken in this draft. Over 0.5 is plus 162. Under a half, meaning 0, is minus 220. But if a running back is taken, and how many straight years has a running back been taken?
Every single year since 2014.
So, history might say that there will be a Quay by which a running back will end up going in the first round. And if that does happen and you buy a PFF Elite subscription, which, by the way, you can get for 50% off right now.
So that's $100.
$100 off, just $8 a month. If a running back is taken in the first round, you will get an extra year of PFF for free. Everything. Nothing taken away, just everything for free for an extra year. Because we love running backs that much. People give us a ton of shit. They say, oh, we hate running backs. Running backs don't matter. Running backs matter. And we're putting our money where our mouth is. Because if a running back matters enough to go in the first round, all of you will benefit. So
by the way, the no is minus 200. So if you want the PFF Elite subscription, which is a $200 value, you can buy no, right? And then for whatever appetite you want, and hedge your way to the PFF.
Hedge your way to glory
subscription.
Is that a podcast by someone we know? Hedge your way to glory. The promo code is draft50. And if you use it between now and the draft, you will get an opportunity to get that free year, plus getting that 50% off on everything great that PFF has. All of our lock content, all of our betting tools, all of our fantasy tools, all can be yours for 2 years for a ridiculously low price. So go make it happen at pff.com. By the way, so here's how I want to start the props as we run through the props here. How dumb were we for not realizing that Trent Baalke was never taking Aiden Hutchinson? Okay. Trent Baalke, here's the history with Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke and Jim Harbaugh hate each other. Had so many they do not like each other.
I'm going to pay for it. Yeah,
from their time in San Francisco. Okay. Go look at the people that Trent Baalke has drafted. Find me one that wasn't a like 99th percentile, especially as an edge rusher, a 99th percentile edge rusher. All of them. Go look at San Francisco's roster and tell me that he was going to go pick at number 1 overall a guy that Jim Harbaugh extolled the virtue of over and over again. There's no chance. He was never taking Aiden Hutchinson. That is, and I feel so stupid for not realizing that, because we could have gone in and identified Travon Walker at such a ridiculous price. We'd be talking about Quay Walker like it was, a couple of quarters.
It would be Quaint Walker.
There you go. I mean, even Kayvon Thibodeau, who I don't know, man. I think there's a solid chance that Kayvon Thibodeau goes
second to the Lions. Yeah.
Second to the Lions. Now, I think it'd be harder for the Lions to pass on Hutchinson because he's a Detroit kid and he fits that Dan Campbell mode where, look, Kayvon Thibodeau, how could he go to the Lions? He likes to play chess. That's ridiculous. I'm kidding, by the way. But I feel stupid. We should have
now the number 2 pick on DraftKings, Aiden Hutchinson is the -150 favorite. Kayvon Thibodeau +130 on his heels. The interesting thing is, and we're going to do this on the PFF Draft Show, you sort of go through. There's been 11 players at one point in time were the DraftKings favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft, right? So
really?
Going back to like Spencer Rattler
okay.
and like Sam Howell and Kayvon Thibodeau is the favorite right around Christmas, and then it was Aiden Hutchinson, and then it was Evan Neal, and then then it was Aiden Hutchinson again.
Ike Ekwonu.
Ike Ekwonu was close. I don't think he was there. I do have some Ekwonu. I think it only got to
because the word is that the players that are in the running are Travon Walker and Ike Ekwonu.
For what it's worth, Ike Ekwonu has gone from +450 to +600 today. Walker has gone from -190 to -300, and Hutchinson has gone from basically 2-1 to 3-1. Yeah. So I think, and there have been some blue checks that have actually reported that Walker is the pick. I think that the only leak, if you have Walker bets, but this is my issue. Like, I'm going to lose money on the first overall pick just because I just kept buying dips, but there were so many players that ultimately I ended up eating vig, right? But you should have right now at plus price, because they were always available to you, Evan Neal, Ike Ekwonu, Aiden Hutchinson, and Travon Walker. All those players. And Thibodeau. I don't have any Thibodeau. Thibodeau goes 1. I might be screwed. But if you should have all those players at plus prices to begin with, right? The only issue is if you ever chase the favorite, right? When Hutch was at like -150, I was like, oh, this is
a lock.
This is a lock. -150 is nothing. And you're like, do you really think that 60% this was going to happen 60% of the time? So, with respect to that pick, you should probably be fine. I wouldn't lay the number with Walker now. It's just too expensive. But like that, when you're going through this process, just remember, let this be a learning experience. That plus, with these, and this is the first time in a long time, right? This is probably the Baker draft was the last time. I guess Murray early on was not a favorite and then was a -400 favorite on draft day. This is the first time since the Mayfield draft where the favorite hasn't been like -500 on draft day or minus, the 40,000, 40,000 was what it was, 4,000, I'm sorry, for, what was it? Both Lawrence and Burrow the nights before their draft. So, right. This is a learning experience, but I think now the value is going to be, in my opinion, less so in some of these like top 5, top 10, top 32 where there's a lot of vig. Even first offensive player, basically anything that has a not attached to it is going to be kind of shitty value right now. And to me, I think where we should start our discussion now is basically these over-unders and where we think, some of these are going to position themselves. And I even think with respect to some of the top guys. So like Kayvon Thibodeau, over under 4.5, unders minus 160. Overs plus 120. Like, I think a lot of the value has been sucked out of a position like that. Malik Willis 13.5, overs minus 160, unders plus 120. That one's a tricky one, right? But you can get into some of these other ones: George Karlaftis, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, Matt Corral, Jordan Davis is interesting. His number has ballooned up and then contracted down over the last couple days. I think pick 14 is sort of where the market thinks he's exactly going. Bernard Raymond, Christian Watson, those kind of players. I'll offer this to you. Like, is there anyone that's you're particularly interested in?
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of the guys at the top, I think it's tough because even though I think there's going to be a ton of variance, like pick to pick, I think we know the first pick. I feel pretty good about that. And then everything kind of goes to shit. But there's a lot of consensus, it seems like, around kind of the general position, right? So you look at a guy, here's one that I think is interesting. Drake London. So Drake London is at 10.5, and it's basically even money to both sides. And you look at that in comparison to Jameson Williams, who I believe is the number one receiver in this draft, and I believe the NFL believes is the number one receiver in this draft. Now, his position is 11.5, but it's minus 172 under, plus 128 to the over. I think Drake London is the third receiver taken in this draft.
Yeah, I'm over on Drake London.
And I look at that and I go, because let's look at the draft order here, right? I mean, because that's, trades are going to happen, but you're going to sit here and predict trades. I mean, let's think about this here for a second. So you have, let's look at, so for Drake London to go under 10.5, he would have to go to the Seahawks, Falcons, Panthers, Giants, Jets, Texans, Lions, or Jags. Now I'm missing one team. Who is it at 10 that I'm missing? Jets again, yeah. Right? So I got that right? So okay, so let's think about this for a second. If Jameson Williams is the top receiver in the draft, that means he's going ahead of Drake London, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and a couple ways to look at this maybe are, if you go, and these were just offered, are where are they called? Draft matchups. So if you look at Wilson's actually a favorite to go over Williams at this point. Wilson's minus 150 to Williams plus 120. Williams is a favorite to go over London. Williams at minus 140, London plus 110. I think the leak here, when you look at the teams, I think your approach is really solid here, is the Falcons, like the Arthur Smith offense, might like a Drake London more than they like. It's the styles make fights thing, and you really have to look at the Atlanta Falcons as a humongous wild card here.
Huge wild card. Now, the good news so here's how I view it. Because I agree, so Garrett Wilson and James Williams are going ahead of Drake London in most situations. Now, if you look at the Falcons, they're sitting at 8. Do you think that they have a player, because they have needs everywhere? Corner, guard, center, D-line, you name it. Quarterback.
Yep.
They're a huge wild card for a quarterback, in my opinion.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't look like the market thinks that Willis or Pickett are going in the top 10, but the Falcons are starting Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people should recall, go back and check what Marcus Mariota has done in the league. It ain't pretty. So, that's not going to be good. But so think about this. You will have some player that they value really highly across the board, regardless of position, that's going to drop to them at 8, right? Whether it's an offensive lineman, and if you're sitting there and you're going, hey, the market views both Wilson and Jameson Williams as the better receiver, are we really going to take Drake London at 8? So, and so that's one that stuck out to me. And it also stuck out to me because you see a lot of juice on either side on a lot of these. And this one was one where it seemed like, it's pretty, it's pretty well set at 10. And I look at 10 and I go, it doesn't feel right for the Jets.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, those feel right for the Jets. This doesn't.
Yeah. And when you look at I think there's just so few outs for London. You look at the way that wide receivers played, whether it's Josh Doxson, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Laquan Treadwell, guys who are first-round caliber players who don't separate. And like everybody, look, I was listening to Warren Sharp's, spaces, and, one of his guys, Dan Pizzuto, was saying, oh, when you watch the tape, he's actually not a bad separator. It's like, when you look at the data, the guy's separation percentile is pretty weak. Like, okay, so, it's a sort of Travon Walker discussion too. Like,
and is that a function also of like the passes he's being thrown, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at that guy's body and you go, oh, I should just throw this to the guy all the time. It's like he could separate well, but because they're willing to target him when he's not separated.
I think maybe that's the case. But then again, like anytime I have to look at somebody's data, right? Mm-hmm. And anytime I have to look at somebody's data and I have to be like, and I have to squint a little bit for me to think that I'm not taking them in the top 10 or 11 players. Like that's the whole Travon Walker thing to me. It's like everybody's like, oh, it's a lazy analysis. Just look at his data. It's like, okay, but every single player then in college football is worthy of the top pick then, because then you have to look at every single unproductive college player and ask, why were they unproductive? And like, why are you? So it's super selecty just to pick this one guy. And granted, we know why, because he's a freak athlete, but. With London, it's sort of like he got production this way, and he didn't get production in a way that's consistent with what has produced. And they all say it was Mike Evans. Well, Mike Evans is the one one non-separator in the NFL that consistently does well. That's a really thin needle to have to thread if you're one of these top teams.
Here's one that I want to think about. Sorry, did you have one you wanted to get to here? Because I have some a quarterback question.
So here's the one that I think is just to say that this one hasn't moved a lot. I gave this out on TikTok. 27.
If you're not following Eric on TikTok,
when it was minus 105, it's now minus 140. I still think it's a good bet. I don't think Tyler Linderbaum goes in the first round. And I'll apologize to the listeners when I mocked Linderbaum to the Bucks.
You also apologized. Let's be clear. So let me take the listeners back. Yeah. This is the man that apologized to, quote unquote, I want to apologize to Chiefs Kingdom. What was this, after the Super Bowl last year? An apology. You may or may not have been intoxicated on this podcast. Rumor has it, but I don't know. I can't neither confirm nor deny. So thank you for your apology to the syndicate.
I took Linderbaum with the Bucks. Jensen did sign a not a lengthy deal, but a deal, and then the positional or the scheme fit was not great. I was trying to fit Linderbaum in the first round. I actually don't think.
Look at you, man of the people.
There's a realistic place for him in round one, and so at 27.5 over minus 140. Again, you do not get the no price on a first round pick, right? Mm-hmm. So unless you can find it somewhere, let me know because I'll bet it. I think that's an over. For me,
I like that one a lot, and I think that you look at this draft, and because there's a lack of star quarterbacks, people kind of assume, oh, there's just maybe a dearth of like good talent here, but there are plenty of players that, especially accounting for positional value, teams are just going to see as being more valuable. Especially you look at the corner class, and the corner class is pretty deep. Like there's some good corners there.
Yeah.
And obviously we've talked about receiver. And here's the other thing that to me is interesting. You look at the back of the first round. What is the back of the first round good for? That fifth-year option.
It historically people have believed that is
right.
The fifth-year option is hitting at a lower rate, so some people might not.
But you know who I think will? The Detroit Lions.
The Detroit Lions, yeah. So
the Detroit Lions are sitting there at 32. And let's assume Pickett and Willis are gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you could say, okay, well, are they going to go with Ritter there? And maybe, so Ritter, I just lost it here, but Ritter, his number is 30.5.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't like that one a ton. Over is minus 102, under is minus 130. But if you go look at a couple of other guys, you look at Matt Corral. Matt Corral, 34.5, minus 114 to both sides. I actually am kind of interested in Howell because man, I think there's some good things on his tape. He's 42.5. Both those guys are interesting to me in going under and thinking about a team that's quarterback needy, jumping up to grab one of them. I think my favorite there is probably Corral, based on some of the things that we're hearing from evaluators that are out there. But you could look at a team like even the Falcons. So if the Falcons are sitting at 43, right? So the Falcons are sitting at 43 and they don't pick a quarterback at 8.
Yeah.
Are they going to wait all the way to 43? That's why Howell's number is 42.5.
Yeah.
But do they jump up, right? And secondarily, if the Falcons take a quarterback at 8, well, then now there might be a team like maybe it's the Seahawks, maybe it's the Steelers that freak out, maybe it's the Saints.
Yeah. But even if you want to look, for that second quarterback, let's actually look at this number. So Ritter's number, as you said, 30.5. You look at Howell, maybe not quite there, but then Ritter's number being 30.5. What does that signal to us? Well, you have two teams. Kansas City is at 29 and 30, right?
So they trade one of those picks.
Brett Veach famously said on a podcast that he has only 16 to 18 first rounders on his board. Now, he thinks that means it's a low chance that two guys will make it 29-30. It's actually not that low because it's the birthday problem type of problem, and the boards are a lot more heterogeneous than we think. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what he thinks, and he trades back, right? And that's where Ritter's number 29-30. The Bengals also a team, and Chris was shit-eating grin when I said this. The Bengals don't have that many needs. So what do the Bengals need to pick at 31 for if a team's going to come up and give them value? Yeah. So that is, and again, so there's some clues there. I want to interrupt this exercise for a quick second because there are bubbling reports about the first 3 picks that are fairly strong. And I want to see if you think it's bullshit.
Is this ball sack or just whack?
Or if you think that this is legitimate. And
wait, hold on.
These are from legitimate people.
Before we do this, reminder that if you were trying to clean your clean up your ball sack, right?
Mm-hmm. You got to clean up on your bets. You got to clean up on.
Yeah, you don't want to go collect your bets with a,
a privilege.
I've done some better transitions in the past, I promise. Go to manscaped.com. Use promo code PFF and get 20% off plus free shipping on all of the different items you need to keep yourself clean, looking good, smelling good, feeling good, no matter where it is on your body from head to toe, because it's important. They give you all the things you need. The Lawnmower 4.0, which takes care of all the hair anywhere. The Weed Whacker, which gets the nose and ear hair. They have deodorant. They have body wash. They have lotion as well. So you will be taken care of. Also for April, they're saying fuck cancer and donating to the American Testicular Cancer Society. So go make it happen. Get yourself looking good, feeling good for the summer with promo code PFF at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping.
So this is and again, these numbers you look at and see if they're moving, right? Like that's got to be, you don't want to get too far ahead. There are people now that believe that the first 3 picks are going to be Travon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Derek Stingley.
Does this mean that I get redemption for taking Stingley at 4?
I thought Stingley at 4 was a great pick.
People were so mad about that.
People get mad about all kinds of stuff, George.
You don't need to tell me that. You don't need to tell me that.
Okay, if this is true, right?
What is that? What's the big takeaway there, by the way?
Cool, because the message I got was he said Houston believes that Thibodeau is second on Detroit's board. And I sent back a message that said
who do they think is first?
That's what I said. I said, what if Hutch is first? And they go, no, they think it's Travon and Kayvon. And so
really,
where I call bullshit, and I'm not calling bullshit on this.
The Lions this could be, also have Travon
If Walker? Travon Walker is the number 1 player on Detroit's board, all the stuff I said, restore the roar, they're the 4 seed in the NFC this year, all the jokingness about Detroit's future, the future being bright, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, you went 70% against the spread last year, and you want to waste all that goodwill? Now, if they take Thibodeau, that's fine. Thibodeau is a fantastic player. And ultimately, whatever, he might be better than Aiden Hutchinson. I actually think, and Cade Massey and Richard Thaler wrote about this, player N is better than player N+1 at a certain position, basically 51% of the time, 52% of the time. It's a coin flip. But the opportunity cost is Aiden Hutchinson, is an opportunity to draft Aiden Hutchinson, right? That's what so Aiden Hutchinson's going to be a Jet? Maybe a team that likes Jermaine Johnson, who, and none of these players suck. But Jermaine Johnson is at 4 would be the shittiest value I've ever.
No, sorry.
Cleveland Farrell type value at 4 if the Jets took Jermaine
Cleveland
Johnson.
Farrell wasn't even going to be he was going to be a borderline first-round pick.
He was 15, 16. But Jermaine Johnson, and look, I love him. He's from Minneapolis, St. Paul, like I am. But he had one productive college season.
Which is one more than Travon Walker has.
At 23 years old. That's Damon Arnett, right? And it's in the ACC. The offenses were kind of shitty.
Here's the thing. Because I was talking to our friends on in Broncos country and on KOA, Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Albright today, and they were how do you see the whole athleticism versus production thing? And I was like, why do you have to choose?
You don't have to choose. It's
That's the point. So Kayvon Thibodeau has a 92 PFF pass rush grade, a 92 PFF pass rush grade in true pass sets. You know what Travon Walker's grade is in both those? 63.
Yeah.
Now, there are certainly areas where the PFF grading system can improve. Yeah. But I feel fairly confident that it is doing a good job, especially with D linemen. That's where we absolutely crush. And this is not an opportunity cost. This is not, he played on an offense, on a defense that was so, star-studded. That should give him more opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's not sitting here going, Travon Walker stinks. It's more like, hey, this is the first overall pick. Why not take someone that's athletic and productive?
The opportunity cost of taking Travon Walker at first is foregoing the choice to take either Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson, who check 2 boxes that need to be checked when you take an edge player high. Athleticism, they both have that. They don't have it as good as Walker, but they have that. And you don't need to teach them how to rush the passer. And we've seen Donnell Hunter. Donnell Hunter is a wonderful player. He was taken in round 3. The Vikings have also tried to draft Donnell Hunter 5 times after that. They've all sucked. Right? It's hard. These things. It's like hitting a 5-team parlay, right? And bad bets hit sometimes. I'm not saying Donnell Hunter's a bad bet. I'm just saying these things, these low probability events happen. Why would you take something that's 3-1 and lay 3-1 to bet it? When again, this draft does not have talent. I refuse to believe that Charles Cross isn't worthy of the first overall pick. Evan Neal isn't worthy of the first round pick. Aiden Hutchinson isn't worthy of the first round pick. They act like this is the only athlete on the board, and it's because I said this on Chris's show today. The Trent Baalke's incentive here is a lot different than some of these other guys. Everybody believes Trent Baalke sucks. Let's be honest about this. And there's evidence to suggest that that's true. If Trent Baalke takes a defensive end who everybody believes is good, and he's good, no one cares, right? Everybody's going to look at the 33rd pick and be like, what the hell happened here? Or everybody's going to look at, if he takes a guy we all kind of think sucks, and he just sticks his neck out for him, and the guy's great, who rises up in our eyes? It's Trent Baalke, right? So that's and Josh Hermsmeyer, I think, did a great job of formulating this on Twitter, which is the incentives are not there for these people to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. As we define the right thing, which is to take the player who's on the consensus big board next.
So how can we – let's say we believe this is how it goes, okay? Travon Walker, Thibodeau, Stingley. What's the best way to bet that hypothesis?
Well, right now on DraftKings, and again –
Is it over on Hutchinson?
Well, draft position – so Hutchinson's over right now. So the problem is these indices are not going to give you what you necessarily need, and it's not available on over-unders right now.
Can you bet Thibodeau versus Hutchinson?
I do not see that on the matchups. It could be in a different book, although again, DraftKings might not have the sharpest lines, but they have the widest offering. Here's a couple that are good. Ike Ekwonu is minus 125 head-to-head against Kayvon Thibodeau, who's minus 105. Mm-hmm. That one feels like if you believe this to be true, then that's a good bet, right?
Right.
And in fact, even if it goes, let's say it went Walker, Hutchinson, Stingley, Thibodeau.
Walker, Thibodeau, Stingley on FanDuel is plus 550.
I mean, that seems to make me believe that that's the choice, right? Like that's not a high number for something that's unlikely.
That's not a high number at all. And if you believe it goes Walker, Thibodeau, and
Stingley,
right? But maybe so because the other thing is like, is that again? So there's two more outs with Houston, right? Because Houston could have
Houston. The stories are that Lovie Smith wants a corner and Nick Caserio wants a tackle. So Ike Ekwonu and Stingley are the sort of choices.
Oh,
at 3.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay,
that makes sense.
So when you want Thibodeau, so again, I think the way is to match this up with Thibodeau minus 105 against Ekwonu minus 125 because there's another out there. The other out is you go Walker, Hutchinson, Stingley. So Lovie Smith wins out, and then the Jets take Thibodeau instead of Ekwonu. Now, the hard part is the Jets have been reported to want to trade Mekhi Becton. So there's 3 tackles.
Really?
There's 3 tackles right now. Now that one's pretty out in the open. There's 3 tackles right now that are on the market, and there's various levels of reported here. The one that has been tweeted out a lot is that they want to trade Mekhi Becton. The ones that aren't quite
why by the way.
I don't know. He injured first game. He was drafted by the previous regime.
Oh yeah, that's always.
But here's the other 2 that are interesting. Houston is open to trading Laramie Tunsil, even after the restructure. Now Tunsil's deal, 2 years, $19.5 million left. When you pay a player a ton of upfront, like if you're a team, look, here's free advice, NFL. If you're trading for a veteran player, you want a player like Tunsil, who's had to be restructured because all of that restructure money lands on the team that is trading him. Tunsil's cap number for a team that trades from this year is $1 million, right? So if you're Kansas City, for example, and then next year it's $18 million. The other one that might be traded, we talked about this last night. I was on Seren Petro's show. Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown has not signed his franchise tag. He has not called Kansas City back. Last year, when they traded for Orlando Brown, the Chiefs only had Joe Thuney. They did not have Creed Humphrey, and they did not have Trey Smith, who they drafted. So they hit the panic button, traded for Orlando Brown to get their second good offensive lineman. Now they have 3 good offensive linemen and Joe Thuney with left tackle experience.
Interesting, and they paid him all that money.
And they paid him $16 million, which is a value at left tackle and an overspend at guard.
Overspend at guard.
So I think, and again, last year when Austin Blythe was their center at this time and Kyle Long was their right guard, it was a little bit trickier.
Right.
Now...
Oh, that's so interesting.
So there's an opportunity here, I think, for some interesting things to happen.
That's so interesting. So do you think if Houston were to make a deal for Tunsil, and I'm trying to think about you know who should trade for Laramie Tunsil? The Saints.
The Saints are a big one. The other one that I think is really interesting is. But this is one that doesn't make sense because they don't have the allocation. Like Tunsil's going to get a haul in draft picks because of his contract's not that hard. The team that could incorporate him long term is like Carolina, but they don't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and they need a tackle. So that's another one that's tricky. Another team that could incorporate him would be, and I know the Dolphins got Armstead, so they can't. The Saints are a really good one because he screams Saints. Right,
they only have Saints because they want to win now. They have 2 first-round picks.
They only have $13 million in effective cap space, but right now they have $1 million.
Right,
it would cost $1 million to them.
Exactly, and if they're going to sit there at in the late teens and go, we're going to take Trevor Penning. It's like, just go get Laramie Tunsil. It makes sense. I think Carolina is tough because pick number 6 is a lot.
Chargers also could use a tackle. They have Slater on one side, but.
And would you pay that for maybe you bring Orlando Brown, move him back to right tackle? That would be
But
interesting.
the Chiefs won't trade with the Chargers, I don't think.
Travon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Ike Ekwonu is 44-1.
I think people believe Lovie Smith's going to get his way. And I think if you think about the dynamics of where Houston's at, right? Houston railroaded David Culley. They're going to give the next kind of sitting duck coach his way.
Why, though?
But it would be a good bet. 44-1 is a good bet.
Caserio just came in there.
Last year.
Yeah, but, relatively. No one remembers.
Yeah. Yeah, the Tunsil. So again, like Ekwonu. So right now, if you look at draft positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, let's just look at the top 5 market because I think this paints an okay picture. Ekwonu's minus 225 to go top 5.
Yep.
Charles Cross is plus 200. Evan Neal is plus 195. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a chance, right, that Neal and Cross go to the Jets and in Houston, when in reality, like in theory, neither team needs a left tackle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the trades could make the left tackle a position of need. So
yeah, that's super interesting. You could also think about what's Stingley's number here.
So Stingley's draft position is 4.5, I believe.
Oh no, on FanDuel it's 7.5, even money to both sides.
Okay, it is on. Well, and some of this might be anchoring, right? Because right now on DraftKings it's 7.5. Under is minus 160. But just a couple weeks ago, Stingley was 12.5.
Yeah.
So they're moving down, and maybe they don't want to open up like a 7 draft pick middle for
big
people.
Middle, but that's value for you.
That's value for you if you want to go under that. Yep.
Because
I have some Stingley under that.
There's other opportunities, right? So if he doesn't go, you have more outs there, right? If he doesn't go to the Texans, you have outs really, honestly, all the way through to 7, right? Because, you've got the Jets, you've got the Giants twice. Those are 3 outs. It doesn't. Carolina just took a corner, and it figures they go O-line, but like.
Yeah. So here's the I think the 7.5 number, and when you look at Sauce Gardner's number too, right? Gardner was at 7.5 for a while. It's now 5.5.
I see 4.5 minus 250 over on FanDuel.
5.5 under minus 150. And again, you could look at that. That's not good enough price just to bet an exact on pick 5. You should just look at the pick 5. I think I have to redo the numbers, but the thing with so the 5 and 7 makes sense. The Giants are not going to. The Giants have an interesting situation where it's Giants, it's Carolina, and then it's Giants. Carolina needs a lot of shit. They don't need a corner. So if you're the Giants, you think about tackle maybe at 5, and then you think about corner at 7. That's where you have like I think the Gardner's pick number was 7.5 for the longest time because people didn't believe he'd get by the Giants twice. Mm-hmm. Now I think he and Stingley won't get by the Giants twice is sort of the hypothesis here. If teams move up to 6 with Carolina, it's going to be for a tackle. Carolina's probably going to take a tackle if they stay there, or a quarterback. In either case, it does not affect the Giants' ability. If they go tackle first pick and then cornerback 7th pick, they'll be in the clear there.
Lastly, I just was curious where you are at with the quarterbacks. Malik Willis, 13.5, over minus 160, under plus 120. Kenny Pickett, 15.5, over minus 170.
Yeah.
Under is plus 126. So we talked about the other 3. So clearly, there was obviously a lot of talk around Willis at 2, Pickett at 6. It seems like those days are long gone.
No one cares because of my bets, but this is a situation where I saw Willis at 13.5 on DraftKings. I saw him 10.5 offshore and took the over 10.5.
Yeah.
Pickett, I have a 12.5, although it's like minus 210. I have some Willis first quarterback. I think when you look at this market right now, the only bet you can make, I think, on the QBs is either over, stay. I'm not going to bet this, but I think the only bet worth taking right now is Pickett 170 to be first quarterback. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to let it ride. I have some Willis at plus 150. I have some
We're still Ritter 40 to 1.
Ritter at 40 to 1. If Pickett goes, God bless you. I don't care.
If Ritter goes,
congratulations, NFL. You win.
If Ritter goes, I need you to do something special on the draft site. Okay, I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be cheering on, and if that happens, for the syndicate's sake, as the representative of the syndicate on the show, Eric, I need some fire.
Look, if the first two picks are Desmond Ritter and Quay Walker, like I'm just gonna retire.
Well, they're not gonna. That's not gonna happen.
If I go to
but if
Cabo.
we put a little on Travon Walker, Thibodeau, Aquanu, a little 44.
That does feel like a really
kind of sexual, kind of violent.
Yeah. Schefter is now reporting unexpected player sneaking around one possibility this year's USC pass rusher Drake Jackson. I've been tweeting about how good Drake Jackson I think he is. This is
Would you take Drake Jackson over Jermaine Johnson?
Yes. Drake Jackson's a better player than Jermaine Johnson. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Drake Jackson's plus 175 to be taken in round 1. If you look at his draft position, not Drake London. There's no draft position on DraftKings. But that's another interesting one. Man, they're so... We started this whole thing by saying there's no value left on the board.
And there's all this value.
There's all this value left on the board.
Drake Jackson, by the way, was a top 35 pick for a while and recently has taken a nosedive in the PFF mock draft simulator.
I think that has something to do with when we change
our numbers, but it's consistently gone down, right? It started to pick back up a little bit recently, which I think is interesting. And you look at some of his data, and the guy was productive as hell last year. So
let's do one as we sort of close up the show. Let's do one. Let's think about the worst beat that somebody could have. And I'm thinking about, let's say somebody logs on and they say, this is a lock. I'm going to lay minus 500 or more for a pick.
Mm-hmm.
And let's try to find the pick that we advise people not to take then. And I already said, like, so my example, here's my first example. I'm going to give this one away. I don't think Tyler Linderbaum minus 900 to go in the first round. If you take that, if you bet that, I mean, you could be an Iowa Hawkeye, you could be Waterloo. Actually, that's where UNI is, where Trevor Penning is. That's a pick where, so if you're looking at the top 32 market and you lay minus 1,200 for Devin Lloyd to go round 1, Tyler Linderbaum minus 900 to go round 1, Treylon Burks at minus 650 to go in round 1, Quay Walker at this point, if you lay the minus 600 for him to go to round 1, don't. Like I'm just saying, like, don't ruin your night by losing $6 to win $1.
I think my basic point would be just don't bet on anything that's super juiced at this point.
Yeah.
I think by and large, like, that's not the way to go here. So I think that's a good point. Of those ones, the Linderbaum minus 900 in the first round is...
I think he's not going to go in the first round.
It's kind of scary.
Could be wrong.
But it only takes one, though.
But here's
Let me give you one. Let me give you one that I like. That this is not following in line with what you were asking for, but Breece Hall, under 37.5. I think I mentioned it a little bit ago, but like, I like that one.
Yeah. So my question for that one, which I don't hate. So there's a few different ways to bet this. So first running back is minus 250 to Breece Hall. I'm going to talk about this in a quick second. But there's a couple different ways, right? So top 32, Breece Hall is plus 160.
Right. He's an underdog to go in the first round because, a running back in the first round.
Running back being taken in the first round is plus 150. I think, so you have to sort of price out. Do you think Kenneth Walker or anybody other than him is going to go in round 1? Pretty slim.
Yep.
So, like, maybe Breece Hall plus 160 is the way to go. But if you don't think he goes in round 1, and you think a team's going to calculate and say, okay, we're out of round 2, like, we can lose our running back draft virginity here, and they go ahead and take one at, like, 34, then your bet's a pretty good one.
Let me just tell you the teams that are picking in the top of the second round, and you tell me what you think. the Jaguars, the Lions, the Jets, the Giants, the Texans. Those are 33 through 37. You think one of them might make we need a running back to get this all together?
Interestingly, last year, and I think this is a really good lesson to take on, the safety market. Can't remember who is the Raiders draft pick.
Last year?
Raiders 2021 draft. Trayvon Walker was the favorite to be the first safety taken, right?
Yep.
And he was minus 200, minus 250, something like that. And ultimately, he wasn't even close to being the first safety taken. I believe. I could be wrong.
Well, he didn't go in the first round, right?
He didn't go in the first round. He could have been the first safety.
I think he was the first safety taken, but he was supposed to go in the
not
first
the
round.
favorite. The player who was the favorite to be the first safety taken, I have to look, 2021 draft. I'm screwing up my story now. But
I know.
The point being, so you look at the safeties taken. Javon Holland was the first safety taken.
That's right. And he was
really very good. He was worthy of it. Travon Walker was the first safety listed. The issue is, if you are betting the favorite in a market where the position isn't taken until well into the draft, specifically the second round, where every team theoretically has had their crack at a player, those are not sound bets, because ultimately, Travon Walker only needs to be the top player on one team's board. Kayvon Thibodeau only needs to be a top 2 player on 2 teams' boards, et cetera, right? When it's a position that isn't marked to go, and I think about this, when you look at special teams, that the San Diego State punter Matt Ariza minus 400 to be the first special team player taken. That's a terrible bet, right? Because all 32 teams basically need to agree that he's the best player on the board by that sizable margin. And by the time you get later into the draft, you have every single team gets to bid for these players, basically.
You have seen every single team has shown their hand to the point where for you to actually feel good about that, right?
Right. So Breece Hall being minus 250, are you sure that number reflects the consensus of all the teams in the league?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And Kenneth Walker at 2-1 doesn't, or Isaiah Spiller at 15-1, and again, once it gets to 15-1, 20-1, whatever. But even Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the draft that the Chiefs took him, he was the third favorite behind Jonathan Taylor and I think who was the Lions running back,
Swift,
DeAndre Swift, and then you had J.K. Dobbins. By the time you get all the way back there, it's whatever floats your boat at that point for the team that's drafting. And so when you look at, tight end's another one. Trey McBride, the guy from Colorado State, wonderful tight end, great tight end. Minus 450, you're insane if you bet that, right? Because Greg Dulcich could be, the Chiefs' favorite tight end at pick 50, and they don't give a shit about Trey McBride, and they just happen to be hey, I like this guy here, right? And so as you get later on in the draft.
What's the percentage of people watching the draft tomorrow that could name a tight end in the draft?
Isaiah Likely is a good name. Jalen Weidemeyer is an interesting one because the guy's literally less athletic than me.
You're making my point for me. It's 1%, and those are family members. All right, let's get out of here. The draft show, if you're not watching it tomorrow, I don't know what you're doing. It's on PFF.com. Eric Eager will be live. And live may be an understatement for what kind of state you're going to get Eric Eager in. It starts at what time, Eric?
We get here at 6. The draft starts at 8, right? So we're starting at 7.
You figured it out.
The first.
I'm not on the show, and I know it starts at 7.
The first hour is going to be an absolute. I remember last year, we got here at 6. We started prepping. 7 starts, and then of course we knew who the number 1 pick was. We knew who the number 2 pick was. At that time, we probably knew Trey Lance. Although we sweated it out.
No, I was sweating.
So you're what, an hour and a half into the broadcast, and really nothing's happened yet.
Yep.
And so my goal, I don't know if Chris is watching it. My goal is to pace Chris, because Chris lets it go for the first hour, right? And then we get to the actual draft, and it's we're all a little tired, trying to pace Chris a little bit.
Okay. Chris usually, my take, because we've done the draft show with Chris a few times, is that it's pick 10. Pick 10, it's all right.
Well, if you watch the show with Chris today, it's pretty hilarious. Chris shows up, and the prep sheet that he has maybe the first 8 picks written down, and then he, to his credit, had gotten here at like 6 a.m. and like gotten to pick 23. But at 9 o'clock came, he had to start the pod, and so we get to pick like 25. He's like, "All right, Eric, picking these together now." So like, because before
Smart.
he would just like tell me what his pick was, we talk about it,
Yeah.
and then he's like, "All right, your Chiefs are up next. 2 picks. What do you got?"
By the way, who do you have one?
Walker.
So last night at 8 o'clock, he had Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay.
The same spiel I gave you today, I gave to Chris last night. And that
He changed his
flipped
mind.
it. He flipped it in our conversation. But it's super interesting because Chris obviously pays so close attention to how PFF, our data and our big board and everything. But he also talks to people in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think people underestimate how connected Chris is. And he has a really good sense of how teams value players, right? He talks to every coach and every offensive coordinator and every GM and every owner of every team throughout the year. So I do think it's really interesting. Everyone should go check that out. Go tune in the show tomorrow to see what he and you have to say. I will be a fan watching.
Oh.
I don't know if you're going to be able to, can you get me to zoom in? Like, can I?
We'll come and get you when, the other interesting part was when I told Chris about Quay Walker, he went back to his room and watched it, came back out, he goes, "Yeah, that guy's going in the first round. It's Deion Jones." And they went back into his office. Okay.
There you go.
So Chris is
I will be in a
sharp.
state where betting is legal.
Oh.
Yes. So let's consider
Okay.
whether
I will
there's a
send you
syndicate
some.
play. Your boy lands in the city of God. Actually, it's not the city of angels. I was going to say city of angels. It's not where I'm landing. But a different loss with an A. And betting is legal there. So I don't know. If that exact order is still there, because that would be a hell of a weekend.
Venmo you some money.
Yeah. So I'm planning to come back. I should be back in Cincinnati by Sunday. But if that 44-1 hits, I'm going to be flying you out west for a little stadium swim on Sunday. But that was our podcast. I don't know how the close took like 20 minutes, but we love you. Thank you for hanging out with us. From Eric and George, we will see you again Sunday. We will recap everything. It'll be a treat. For now, tune into the PFF Draft Show tomorrow. 7 p.m. is when it starts. Obviously, the draft starts at 8, and we will be with you throughout the entire weekend because no one covers the draft like PFF does. Peace out.